everybody, and welcome to Be in the Know, table games and more. And tonight we start what I had promised, around the world in 80 casinos. Now we're going to start off with a gentleman who kind of worked on the West Coast, the Midwest, and now he's in the Deep South. And Colin Skidmore, welcome to Be in the Know.
Happy to be here, Benny, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
So Colin, I'm very, I'm envious of you, some of the things you do down there in Greenville, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I always start the show off the same way. And I know you got some seeds in the table games to start your career. So just tell me, how'd you get into this crazy casino business?
Yes, so it's an interesting story. I was working retail at a mall, and I had a buddy who had gotten a job as valet at Southern California property, a Harrah's property with Caesars Entertainment. And he let slip one day while we were hanging out just how much he was making as valet. And I'm like, what am I doing working these crazy hours? I'm in the wrong industry. And so I got a job at that casino as a bell person. And I never looked back. I loved that every single day was different. I was making good money. My wife and I, we had our first child, and we were like, you know what? I need something a little more consistent. We need to make a little bit more money. And everybody said table games. You got to work for table games. That's the place to go. And so they were doing a table games dealer school, and I joined up and done many different jobs in table games, from dealer to dual rate to supervisor. I scheduled for casino operations. Then I went into continuous improvement, finance, marketing, back to table games, which is a passion as a director. Went to Indiana to help launch table games and sportsbook, and now here in, like you said, in the Deep South in the Delta, running a casino here. It's been a fantastic journey.
Yeah, and you've been 18 years in the Caesars organization, if I got that right.
Yes, absolutely.
And Caesars has always been a successor-based company, to where they're always trying to develop the next person to take your job, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure right now they're looking for somebody to take your job because you're going to move on somewhere else. I mean, it's just the way it works out. And it's never, so later on, we'll talk about the difference in the brand today and the brand 18 years ago. But it's always been the same, no matter who's been at the top or the helm of that company. They've always seemed to maintain that successor strategy. And I'm really, kudos to them, because they've developed a lot of great leaders like yourself. So now getting back to 80 casinos around the world in 80 casinos. So you started off in Southern California. Now give me an idea. So if you're going to compare, now you went from Southern California to Indiana and walk me through the difference in like running a casino in them three different jurisdictions.
Yeah, so it was a tribal property in the South, which was a great tribe to work with, the Rincon tribe. And they basically, any sort of, what was kind of neat about that is, you would be managed with Caesars. So you'd have a lot of corporate initiatives and different things like that. But working with the tribe, if they felt like, hey, I think we should try a different direction, we would actually have some leeway to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more out there. I mean, if you look at Harrah's Southern California now, I mean, they're able to try things like Funner California, a little bit out of the ordinary. So a lot of innovation comes, I think, from a tribal property like that when they're interested in trying different things. It's a really good relationship with them when you try and maybe look at doing things a little more differently. It's a partnership, right? It was a really great environment in that sense. A lot of innovation in California and the tribal property.
Now, when you're in a tribal property, your regulator is the tribe, right? Basically. So now you go from, I wouldn't say loose, but an operation where you could, if you want to change. I always tell somebody, hey, you know what? When I wanted to change a game in Las Vegas, I called surveillance and told them the number was going to change. And I told Soft Count there's going to be a different box in there. And the next day, if it was Ultimate Text told him it was Pie Gal the next day. I said, but now this could take me 6 months. It just depends on where you're at, right? So tell me about the journey going from California to Indiana.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. It was a whole different ball game when it comes to regulations and so forth. Indiana, especially when launching table games for the first time, they wanted to make sure that we were doing everything by the book, and the attention to detail and all the like you said, there's a lot of more steps to get things done, and quite frankly, I was used to doing things differently, and I did get my wrist slapped a couple of times until I realized, okay, no, this is a different area, different jurisdiction. I've got to go about this differently. And so I relied a lot on our compliance director, Joel, at that property, because he knew exactly how to prepare things, how to approach things, and how to do things the correct manner that they expect, the IGC expects. It's just a different methodology. At the end of the day, they're still working with you. They're still you both have the same goals. It's just there's a lot more steps that you have to take in order to make sure that things go the way that they would like them to, and quite frankly, the business can prosper in that regard too.
And I think if sports betting had started before you left.
Yeah, so funny story. They were hiring for a director of table games to help launch table games. When I came out there, it was kind of like, oh, and also could you help us launch sportsbook? So sports betting was just about to get legalized right before table games. And so I ended up helping them launch that sportsbook at Horseshoe Indianapolis, which was a whole, I honestly, Ben, I'm not the biggest sports fan in the world. So that was kind of a curveball, but I definitely got I hit the ground running with that. And in fact, the general manager there handed me a sports betting for dummies book when I came in the door.
And Colin, one thing about you, I believe, you just understand when you fall in deep water, you just keep pad on, right? I mean, if not, you drown. So you're able to keep your head above water no matter what you do.
Yeah. Benny, on that, my dad actually gave me a really great piece of advice around that nature, which was, if someone asks you if you can handle it, say yes, and you'll figure it out. And that's been my motto throughout my career.
Well, it's been I've always found that people who have initiative and who have the desire, you can teach them to do anything almost. If they're around it long enough, they're going to get the idea.
Yeah.
So now you get an opportunity of a lifetime, I guess. You all of a sudden, I mean, you get told that, hey, how would you like to go to Mississippi? So tell us about that.
Yes. So it was the general manager there at Horseshoe Indianapolis, Mike Rich. I guess they were kind of looking for somebody to help come run this property because the GM here had gotten a bigger role with Horseshoe Tunica. His name's Derek. And so they were looking for somebody. I'm ever appreciative of Mike where he put my name forward. And so I got to interview for it. And, I did my research of the area, made sure my wife was okay with that. She knew my dream, and you got to check with the family and make sure that, there's an alignment there. And she said, go for it. And the rest is history. I mean, this is my dream job. I've been able to make an impact here in the community with these team members, with these guests. And it's everything I've wanted to do in my career. I've really enjoyed it.
So you're a name dropper when it comes to places you've worked. Harrah's, Indiana Grand, which is now the Horseshoe, and this Greenville is a Trop, right?
Yes, Trop Greenville. So it's underneath the Caesars Entertainment umbrella, but it one time was a Tropicana umbrella, and then it was an Eldorado umbrella, and then with Eldorado buying out Caesars, it became a Caesars umbrella. So lots of change at this property. A lot of different things over the years. So that was a challenge coming into the role as well, is to trying to solidify and create some stability here.
So you're up in the northern part of Mississippi. So what would you what would be your main drawing city? The Memphis or?
Yeah, so we're kind of in the middle of Mississippi, so less northern. So we're right at like the Arkansas border on the left side of Mississippi. So we used to thrive from the Arkansas business prior, to some of the development there in the casino gaming world. So that was where the pull was there. Now we're really still pulling from Arkansas, but it's a hyper local market. So we get people walking to our property that come and enjoy, and it's a smaller property. I think I've mentioned that to you. But because it's a smaller property, you can make those bigger impacts, and you can take those bigger swings and try different things, which has been fun.
It's really interesting that different these organizations, they build properties as the jurisdictions open up, right? And for a while, you're the only kid on the block. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to learn how to market. You don't have to do anything. You put 6 to 5, 1 to 5, 12 to 5, 14 games, 15 games, 1,000 games. It just doesn't matter, But then, here comes your neighbor. They let somebody else, and then they add a mini casino, and then they add iGaming and all these other different facets to the picture. And now you got to learn to play a different kind of ball. You weren't playing big ball, right? You were just tearing it up. And now you got to go for every bunt to get on base and move the runner. And speaking World Series, but anyway, that's kind of what we do. I mean, I have the same thing at PDI. For the longest time they had the lockjaw in the market because Ohio didn't have table games, and so a lot of people made that journey to Erie. And now, our market's changed. We still got a really kind of a niche market because we sit right on the I-90 and we get a lot of traffic off of there. But still, you got to learn to be move, and you got to shake, and you got to change, and you got to do things different, and you got to make a different look for other ways to make people happy and make yourself different. And I always tell my employees this. I said, there's one thing that we got that they don't. And that's you.
Yep.
And as long as you make the difference, we'll make the difference. So speaking of that, I've been watching your LinkedIn, and I've just been blown away by your walk in the shoes program. You go right in that property, and you're like, maybe I should learn to be a GM. No, you don't do that. You go right into the fray and go right to the promise. I mean, you're in the flesh is getting AIDS. You're right in the mix with your employee, and you worked in I think I last count like 11 different departments. So tell me about that journey, Colin.
Yeah. So you mentioned learn how to be a GM and all that kind of thing. I think to be a good leader, and I know I've talked with you, I've seen your posts as well, right? To be a good leader, it's about people, and it's about knowing your team, and it's about hearing what they have to say. And so I thought, we had seen similar programs at other properties. I know at Harrah's and Caesars, they've run these kind of programs. They weren't as formalized, but they would have their executives come into housekeeping and learn to do those things. I participated in that. And so when I was talking with the regional president, we were kind of going through like a game plan for new GMs, and one of the things in there was get involved with your team members and work in those different departments. And so we formalized it. So we came up with a formal program here at Trop Greenville where executives, specifically the general manager first, kind of paved the way, would get in and work with every department and ideally every position to really get to know what they're doing, have a context of things, right? So as things come up in those departments, you actually know what they're talking about, because you saw that. I'll use an example. We spoke earlier of a fryer in the corner that they're referencing. I know what fryer they're talking about. And I figured the best department to start with, of course, is EVS, or the cleaning team on the casino floor. If I'm going to tell them I'm going to walk in their shoes, I'm going to get out there and clean those toilets and vacuum those floors. And not only did it open my eyes to kind of all the different things that an EVS team member does that I just frankly wasn't aware of, But I also noticed that some of the tools that they were using were not the best and beat up. And so we were able to make a difference there. And I definitely made a difference with the team member culture where they like, oh man, hey, he's actually going to do this. He wasn't just kidding. So it's been a fantastic journey. I've hit, like you said, 11 departments so far. We're still going, but I've also incorporated the executive team that does it as well. So all around, it's just been a great eye-opening experience. And I would encourage all GMs, all leaders to really get down there with your team and let them know you care about them and that you're willing to do the work.
Well, kudos to you. I mean, Colin, I mean, I always told everybody, I said, I don't want to be a GM, but if I was going to be a GM, I'd want to work one day in every department, just like I told you. So, I might not know how to check somebody in, but I know what you're talking about when you say, hey, I got to use that printer over there and it's jamming all the time.
Yep.
At least I have an idea. And, there's not too many GMs in this world who's going to lower themselves to go into and that connection's really, really valuable, especially even at my level or VP level or whatever, there's a lot of things we do good for the employees that we just can't talk about. So how do they know we're okay, and we really got their back. It's hard to do because sometimes you got to keep a lot of secrets until the last minute, and they don't know until it's too late. Hey, man, he did that for us. Whoa, and that's the thing is, but you're able to get in there and the team understands, hey, you were part of them. You were one of them for a day. So there again, kudos to you. I'm going to keep watching the whole transition. I mean, how many more departments would you have to go through, man? 3 or 4 or 5?
Not too many more. I think now it's a matter of hitting some of the back of house stuff. So those ones are definitely eye-opening because you don't realize all the different support groups that they actually work with. I think compliance is the next one that I'll be working. So that should be fun and interesting.
Really? Now, how is the regulation in Mississippi? If you had to, so now you've been in California, which would be what, a 0 or a 2, and then you go to Indiana, which is probably up there in a 6 or 7. So how would you rate the regulation in Mississippi?
It's been great. It's different. Absolutely, every jurisdiction is different, right? So Indiana, there are a lot of steps, a lot of detail oriented, right? A lot of you would have to have an agent there on property in order to even open. Here, it is similar. They're very, there are steps that you need to take. You got to make sure you hit those regulations. But there is, it's different, right? So I guess within Indiana, well, like for example, you would like, I remember coming into Mississippi my first day and I forgot to wear my gaming badge into the back of house and I panicked. I'm like, oh my God. Who do I need to call? I forgot to wear my gaming badge. This is horrible. My second day as GM, and I'm going to get a huge slap on the wrist. And then when I spoke to the supervisor, he's like, "Oh, you know what? Just let me know about it. It's fine. It's a different kind of mentality here, where that wasn't a big slap on the wrist. It's just say, hey, just remember next time. That's an important thing to do. It's much more conversational versus, hey, did you hit, what about this IC, this internal control? Did you look through that and how are you going to address that element? It's like, okay, well, tell me what is the end goal here? And then you have a conversation about things rather than, hey, let's talk through the ICs. Again, just different ways of approaching similar situations.
Yeah, and I think they all, as they get some tenure into the casino world, they start loosening up and start being a little bit more open-minded to some of the things or the way they do things. It's not just when you go to different jurisdictions. I've found is the players, right? Yeah. The players. So you get mindset in California. Well, these guys do this or they do that, or in Indiana they do this. It's just like, at one time, if you would have come into Indiana and taken 21+3 off every game and put, let's say, Buster Blackjack, you'd have lost your whole market share. It'd been gone. When I went to Greektown, they had this bet called Perfect Pairs. I've never Never heard it. Was it Perfect Pairs or something like that? Anyway, but it's a Huxley side bet. That just tells you how odd it is. And it's only in Michigan. And if you pull that out, you're dead. You're just totally dead. And you got to know your jurisdiction that way. And same thing with slots. There's slots that work in Mississippi. They will not work in Indiana. And you go in there, and now you're seasoned to these jurisdictions. But I'm sure the first time you did it, you're like, oh heck, that'll work. But let's do this, and you found out, oh wait a minute, I made a big mistake there, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really interesting because we thought big six wheel is a good example, right? I mean, in Indiana, they have a big six wheel and high limit room. It's so popular there. You try launching it here in Mississippi and it's crickets. And it's like, oh, I don't understand. It's the same kind of roulette kind of concept here, but there's no interest. Or, I think Buster Blackjack was a good example. In California, Buster Blackjack was fantastic, but it ended up that we tried it in Indiana. It wasn't so interesting to folks. So it is interesting that depending on your market, your guests will just not like something that works elsewhere. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I was blown. So I went up to help when I was in the Hard Rock organization, help Gary get off the ground, and so I shopped the properties there at Ameristar and then the Horseshoe, and I checked them all out, and I came back and they said they were ordering these old baccarat trees. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. They just say P and T. On one side, the sign says P, the other side says T, and then B, and then in the middle it says T. That's all it is. It's a big barber. It looks like an old style roulette board, but it says BTP, which means banker, tie, player. And they light up, green, blue, red, whatever. And they're just like a big barber pole. They're not these beautiful Huxley signs or Shuffle Master signs that have the dragon that goes by and has the Macau type board. All it says is PTB. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're ordering them? Oh, players will not play. I said, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me. And I have a theory on this board. I was up there and the guys tell me, no, you can't, we got to have these. We can't have the modern boards. And what I found out, I was watching the Huxley board light up, and it was lighting, the banker player in alternate colors to what they were. And I'm thinking that's why they failed, because they didn't light up in the proper colors. And if a person didn't speak, English, you're literally looking for the color to know where they want.
Yeah,
and now you've just totally reversed it from what the layout says. So I don't know. That's my theory. But okay, let's move on here. So last thing I want to ask you about is you've been in the Caesars brand for 18 years.
Yes.
Been to the Park Place, oh heck, I don't even know what it was called. It's called Harrah's, then it was called Park Place, and then it was Caesars. And I think it was even Hilton at one time. I don't. So tell me about the brand from the time you walk me through the time you walked in the door now, and what the differences are.
It's interesting to me. We were Harrah's. So originally it was Harrah's before. I'm sorry. So Harrah's bought out Caesars and then took on the Caesars name. So I was there for that when that happened. And there was, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? This is new owners, that kind of thing. Quite frankly, for me not being in those leadership roles at that time, it was kind of day to day was the same, and there wasn't much of an impact when that happened. And the culture there is very similar to how it is now. Actually, it's pretty interesting, Benny. I think Caesars Entertainment has actually kind of maintained. You mentioned earlier developing talent from within, promoting from within. That's been a big staple of them, and they've maintained that throughout. What's one of the things that I really like with our latest leadership that came from the El Dorado side of things is there's a family element, which I really enjoy, where they talk about family style service and treating your team members as part of your family. And I think that's really kind of solidified the Caesars culture. and I in a really good way, because when you start talking about, well, how would you treat your family? Yeah, you have your drama in your family, but at the end of the day, right, you treat them with respect and kindness and empathy. And I love that aspect of it. And so now the culture that is Caesars Entertainment, you can bring that family style service to your guests, your teammates, and I think we are the better for it.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's just a an amazing organization, and we go all the way back to Jay Sarno and the day it just the whole story just is utterly amazing, and I'm really glad to see the Carano family and El Dorado pick this company back up.
Yeah.
And put it back on its feet. In fact, I heard yesterday or something, and it was a blurb that the idea of selling one of the properties or two of the properties off on the strip, they've now decided that's not going to happen, and they're going to maintain those properties, which it's going to be really cool. And really, it's going to be cool to have a horseshoe right on the strip. So yeah, I think things are really going very well in that organization. And and when I was so I did 2 tours of duty with I was at the Flamingo, and I worked at O'Shea's, and then I was part of the Horseshoe Cincinnati for a short period of time. And but when I was I thought when I was at the Flamingo, I would make all the difference, and really turn the Caesars organization around as an assistant ship manager, whatever I was at the time. So I bought, I don't know how much in stock at Park Place. And for 4 straight years, this Park Place stock did nothing. It may have went from $14 to $14.10 back to $13.90. And so I got tired of it. I mean, I sold it off. But that stock, I'm not going to say how much it was. It wasn't that much. I don't know, 20, 30,000, would be worth $1.5 million right now. And I'm thinking, God, man, what an idiot. What an idiot. It split and did all this stuff. And if I just stayed with that Caesars brand, I'd be smoking right now. But I just chalked it up to my whole list of stock failures in my life. No matter what I do, it's always down. I did get Elon. Elon took good care of me. Buying Twitter.
Yeah.
I thought I was in a dumper with Twitter, but man, he pulled me out of well, I can't say that on the air either. So, Colin, I just want to thank you so much for coming on BintheKnow. It's great. We're going to have to do this again.
I just want to say I appreciate what you're doing, Benny. I've always enjoyed your content and the videos that you're putting out. It's an insight and an in-depth look at the industry and different things that just isn't out there. I mean, Tino does a good job, you're right, but I think you also are really contributing to an area that just isn't discussed a lot, and there isn't a lot of resources for people that want to know how other casinos are doing things or how they're thinking about things. And it's a great insight and a great tool, and I love your content. So please keep making the videos, Benny.
Well, I appreciate that, Colin. And my mission for several years now is to pay it forward. Because I really, this business has been really good to me, and if I can do something to make somebody else's path or to success easier, I'm going to do it. And I think opening doors and showing you, what it's like, because I tell you what, it was a real culture shock coming from Las Vegas to the Midwest. And if I can make that a little easier for someone else and give them maybe some insight and save them some time, kids are young now, they probably ain't going to listen anyway. But if they'll catch one little tidbit that makes their life a little bit better, then I've done my job. Yeah.
Yeah. Much appreciated, Benny.
Colin, thanks again. Everybody out there, somewhere around here is going to be a subscribe button. It'd be nice if you hit that thing and pound the bell for notifications, so when when BintheKnow is out there. And always remember, if you're going to do anything, you got to be in the know. Thank you, and see you next time.